The job is finished. The Dodgers are World Series champions.
Jets and Texans playing on Thursday Night Football.
Could it be the two best teams in the NFC?
Should Penn State start Drew Aller or Bo Prevula at quarterback against Ohio State?
The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big Six in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big Six in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
The job is finished. The Dodgers are World Series champions.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Dodgers won. The Dodgers beat the Yankees 7-6 in the craziest comeback. The Dodgers were down 5-0. They were down 3-0 after the first inning, down 5-0. Garrett Cole got into the 7th inning, allowed 0 earned runs. That's how crazy this was. And yet the Dodgers won this game because Garrett Cole allowed 5 unearned runs, only partly his fault, and although kind of all his fault. If he covers first base, the Dodgers don't score anything that inning. We'll dig into all that. And then the Dodgers mounted comebacks again. They were down 6-5, made another comeback with 2 sacrifice flies. People who love the small ball, there it is. And the Dodgers win the game. No team had ever come back from 5 runs down to clinch a World Series. I am going to try to follow along in the chat. I am by myself here tonight, as you can see, and I am going to do my best. I'm going to try to control my emotions. This is a podcast by Dodger fans for Dodger fans, and I am as emotional as all of you. I've said before, deep down inside, I feel like nobody loves the Dodgers as much as I do, but then I come do this podcast, read these chats, and I realize, crap, there's a lot of people who love the Dodgers just as much as I do. And I think that's awesome. And I love that we can love the Dodgers together. Freddie Freeman, World Series MVP, absolutely deserved it. He had one of the big hits in that whatever inning. I'm so scrambled. The inning that the Dodgers scored 5 runs, whatever that was, 4th or 5th inning, whatever it was, Freddie Freeman had a 2-run single, just running it down. The reason that I say Garrett Cole could have ended the inning, ground ball to first base by Mookie Betts with bases loaded and 2 outs. The Dodgers had bases loaded, nobody out. And then Gavin Lux and Shohei Ohtani both struck out. Garrett Cole should have been out of the inning. He gets a pretty weak grounder by Mookie Betts to Anthony Rizzo at first base. Luckily, there was enough weird spin that Rizzo felt like he needed to play back on the ball. And Garrett Cole just forgot to cover first base. So Mookie was safe with an infield single to score the first run. Then Freddie Freeman, 2-run single. Teoscar Hernandez, 2-run double. Tie game. Boom. As quick as that, with 2 outs. And, the only reason Dodgers had the bases loaded to start with was because an error by Aaron Judge and an error by Anthony Volpe. It reminded me of that inning against the Padres when Walker Buehler's pitching, when the Dodgers just decided to say, hey, what would life be like if defense didn't exist? That's what the Yankees did in this inning. And the Dodgers, just like the Padres did against Walker Buehler, the Dodgers were able to capitalize. And so you can say the Yankees gave them some gifts, but also the Dodgers had to capitalize. Freddie Freeman's hit was there. There's nothing gifty about that. It was a great bit of hitting. Teoscar Hernandez's double, great bit of hitting. So you know what? You take advantage of what you get. Later in the game, there was a catcher's interference that put Shohei Ohtani on base. Did end up impacting the game, but the Dodgers in that inning, they come into the inning, they're down 6-5, and they get bases loaded with no outs again with the same part of the lineup coming up. Gavin Lux, and then Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts. This time, Gavin Lux got a sacrifice fly. Huge. Then Shohei Ohtani gets on the catcher's interference, and Mookie Betts, another sacrifice fly to take the lead. And then I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to structure this show. I don't know if I'm going to structure this show. Arginus asks, is the pillow still alive? I'm going to tell you guys a funny story about one of our everydayers. His name is Steve. I've mentioned Steve before, and his son Levi, some of my favorite people there, everydayers. And Steve took my advice about having a clutching pillow when he's stressed. Well, Steve told me today that he ruined a pillow because he was clutching a down pillow with feathers in it. And with feather pillows, like when you squeeze them, like you'll feel the little ends of the feathers sticking out. Well, Steve was so stressed while he's hugging his pillow, he's subconsciously plucking feathers out of the pillow. And he said by the end of the inning, it looked like a chicken had died on his couch. I'm happy to report, Arginus, my pillow is still alive. It got a lot of work tonight. I'm still processing it. And immediately after the game ended, I got a phone call from KNX in Los Angeles because they wanted to talk to me on the radio. And I love it. I love the opportunity to talk about the Dodgers. I wanted to be celebrating with my family. And so every chance I got, like while I'm trying to be professional, talk on the radio guy, I'm like holding back tears. And my wife and all three of my kids are hugging me. My daughter, who has moved out of the house, came over. She saw that the Dodgers had made a comeback and she wanted to be here with me when the Dodgers won the World Series. So she came over. So I had my entire family here with me. They're hugging me. We're holding back tears while I'm being Mr. Professional Radio Man. And just amazing. I'm going to try to scan through this chat while we're talking because Joseph says, Jeff, can you admit now 2020 was nice and all, but never felt satisfying? I'm finally satisfied. Are you? I was always satisfied, Joseph. I understand where you're coming from. The lack of a parade. That 2020 was always completely legitimate. But the fact that they are going to get to do a parade this time definitely will being able to celebrate with each other is a big deal. And so the parade, so since Joseph said satisfying and not legitimate, satisfying, yes, this will be more satisfying because they will get to do the parade. But I felt exactly this same way in 2020. Nando, Big Papa Pump, Jeff Snyder, heck of a year. I edited Nando's comment because I don't say that HE double hockey sticks word. Thank you for dealing with my crap, but as always, go world champion Dodgers. Yay. Nando, thank you for giving me a lot of practice at dealing with crap. Fire Dave Roberts, right, Nando? Heck no. Manager of the year, manager forever, Hall of Fame manager Dave Roberts. The fact that Flaherty didn't even get through 2 innings threw a wrench in things for the Dodgers because while the Dodgers had all their high leverage guys available for this game, as was the plan, what they didn't have was any of their long relievers because all 3 of them, Ben Kasperius, Landon Knack, and Brent Honeywell, threw a lot of pitches just yesterday. So they didn't have any long relievers available. Luckily, they had a backup plan. I keep getting Hamilton songs in my head. How did we know that this plan would work? We had a spy on the inside. That's right. Hercules Mulligan. In this case, it was not Hercules Mulligan. It was Walker F. Buehler, who, just like Clayton Kershaw in the 2016 NLDS, remember, Kenley Jansen had to come into that game early because the Dodgers were out of pitching. Clayton Kershaw went down to the bullpen, ended up coming in for the save. Sound familiar? Blake Trinan had to come into this game in the 7th inning. The radio station trying to call me. Sorry, guys. I'm doing my own podcast right now. Try me later. Blake Trinan had to come in the 7th inning because the Dodgers were out of their relievers. Trinan pitched the 7th and the 8th innings. Did great. Made things a little scary in the 8th inning, but came through when the Dodgers needed him to. And then Walker Buehler comes in for the 9th inning, ground out to Anthony Volpe, and then strikes out Austin Wells. Is that his name? Something Wells. And Alex Verdugo to end the game, to end the series, to end the baseball season, to officially kick off Christmas season. The Dodgers are the World Series champions because of this comeback victory. I'm just going to scroll through this. Look, I love this chat is hopping right now, and I appreciate it. I am going to try to. Tim says Butane and Trinan were fired. Freddie was MVP, and the entire team played like champs. Let's go Dodgers! Absolutely. Last name, no, Lat's the name. Says I'm an everydayer. Normally don't watch when you guys are live. You're part of my commute every morning, but today is an exception. The Los Angeles Dodgers are World Series champion. Just remember, you can still listen tomorrow on your commute. In fact, I encourage it. All of you who are with me live right now, I encourage you to listen again in the morning, watch it again tomorrow afternoon, listen again on your way home from work tomorrow, early and often. That's what I say about Locked On Dodgers. Did Walker just earn a new contract with the Dodgers? You know what? This is something we'll talk more about this in the offseason, I'm sure. But yeah, Walker Buehler is, I mentioned it after his start the other day. He looked a lot like classic Buehler at times. And this one, like the fact that Walker Buehler came into this game and we all felt good about that tells you how far he's come. I don't know what the future holds for Walker Buehler. I'm back to hoping it's in a Dodger uniform. I love that guy. And for him to do this and for him to etch his name in Dodger history, he is the man standing on the mound when the Dodgers won this World Series title. The one from 2020, is one that we'd kind of rather forget at this point. Walker Buehler, guy we can be proud of. Hopefully we can remain proud of him because this was a huge moment. What a great moment for him to strike out Verdugo, who Verdugo would have loved nothing more than to ruin this for the Dodgers. And for him to strike out, it was great. Everything about this game was awesome. Which pitcher for the Dodgers got credit for the win? Winning pitcher is Blake Treinen. He was the pitcher of record when the Dodgers took the lead. That was awesome. I see a lot of people are still watching the post-game coverage. I was too. It's hard to know when to do your podcast. There's other live shows right now. I know there's the post or the locker room content, all that stuff going on. Luckily, Sportsnet LA is going to replay that for me. So I'm going to watch that when I'm done here. And I keep this to 30 minutes. And so that is, one of the great things about this podcast, one of the many, many great things about this podcast, the official podcast, as far as I'm concerned, it's the official podcast of the world champion Los Angeles Dodgers. Trevor Graham Wilcox says he's listened since 2019, and I deserve this. Thank you, Trevor. I agree. I deserve this. We all deserve this as Dodger fans. As I've said many times, I don't love the Dodgers because they win. I want them to win because I love them. And that I know you guys feel the same way. However we all come to the Dodgers, for me, my story is my dad was 4 years old growing up in La Puente, just outside Los Angeles, when the Dodgers moved to LA in 1957 and after 1957 season. And at that point, they were big baseball fans. My grandpa grew up a Cardinals fan. He grew up in Arkansas. But as soon as the Los Angeles got a team, the Snyders became a Dodger family. And so my dad was raised in a Dodger family. Everybody except my Uncle Jim. Uncle Jim is 4 years older than my dad. He had already chosen Willie Mays as his favorite player and the Giants as his favorite team before anybody got a team in LA. Uncle Jim still is the only Giants fan in the family. Even his kids have the good sense to be Dodger fans. The Snyders are a Dodger family. We all come to it differently. I know you have your story of why you love the Dodgers. I even love bandwagon fans because everybody starts somewhere. What I hope is that the bandwagon fans will stick around because being a Dodger fan is awesome. Every single year, the Dodgers give us a chance. They put a good team on the field. They give us a lot of fun all season long, a lot of chances to hear Randy Newman sing I Love LA. And every once in a while, they put it all together in October and win the whole thing for us. What more could you ask for? It is awesome being a Dodger fan all the time, but especially right now.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if they win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. And that winning $5 bet could come from an NFL game in Week 9 with their quarterback on deck to return. The New Orleans Saints are big favorites over the lowly Carolina Panthers. FanDuel has the Saints 7.5-point favorites in Charlotte this Sunday. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast.
Here it is. It's the Yankees 2024 funeral after a humiliating Game 5 of the World Series. And how come under Aaron Boone, nearly every time they lose in the playoffs, it's in humiliating fashion? It's unbelievable to me that this team does this over and over and over again. And I don't know if this ranks as the worst, because I think maybe the ALCS against Houston in 2022 was worse because they got swept. But as for games, this was the worst. This was the absolute worst game that I've seen this team play in Boone's tenure. Just completely terrible.
They played like an undisciplined, unfocused team, making countless errors, not thinking, not knowing what the situation in the game is, know what play to make. And all of those things come from the manager. They do. Keeping your team focused and prepared and composed. The Yankees were thinking about what seats they were going to sit on the plane back to Los Angeles before the game was over.
Yeah.
The Yankees played like they didn't realize that the game took 27 outs to win. And that all comes from the manager. All of it. That all lands on the manager. That all has to do with how you're led. All of it. And they are managed by an awful baseball manager. And he's a great baseball guy, and he's from a great baseball family, and I can go on and on with all the dumb stuff that we hear about Aaron Boone's family and legacy and everything. It's wonderful. I'm sure he's a delightful guy.
Right.
It doesn't change what kind of manager he is, what kind of feel he has for the game. And this has been a problem now for how many seasons? 6 full seasons now. Going into his 7th, I've already been asked multiple times. I literally have already done an interview since the game ended where I was asked if there will be changes. There will not be changes. They are not going to get rid of Aaron Boone. He will be back on opening day. I can almost guarantee you.
This is technically the 7th season.
Yeah, because he started in 2018.
Yeah.
I don't like you said something interesting to me before we started the live stream in this little private meeting that we have prior. This is the first, like, you've experienced them losing in the World Series or big. You saw them get walked off. You saw them get walked off in the World Series.
Yeah.
I've never experienced this. This is my first World Series loss. So it's hard to process, hard to deal with. For some reason, I knew they were going to lose the series and they went down 3-0, and yet it still hurts a lot when you see it.
Sure. Yeah.
With the way that they got off to it, I actually weirdly for a moment started to believe they can come back in the series just because I saw Aaron Judge getting going. And I thought the only chance they had was Judge getting going. I currently don't have the comments up on my screen because I kind of don't want to see them. And no offense to the 300 plus people that are in the stream. I just don't want to see it right now in the open. But I hope to God that nobody is complaining about Garrett Cole's performance. Because Garrett Cole was electric. He was terrific. He had one brain fart. Where, to be honest, not to make excuses for the guy, I think he went into a situation with the bases loaded and no outs and had thought, oh crap, I just got out of this with a ground ball, and just forgot and phased out, blacked out, which happens. Not an excuse, but it happens. If you're going to blame this game on Garrett Cole and the inning on Garrett Cole, you're out of your mind. Garrett Cole emptied the tank, gave you an elite performance, was as good as you've ever seen Garrett Cole pitch for the New York Yankees. And I think he earned almost every bit of the contract they signed him to and proved why that Brian Cashman's made a lot of bad signings and a lot of bad decisions. Garrett Cole was definitely not one of them.
No. Actually, for him to come back after that horrible inning and do what he did.
Pitch 2 more innings.
Yeah.
Because the guts and the
that
heart.
Was really a gutty performance by Garrett Cole, and he did not deserve what his defense did to him in that inning. I know he played a part in that play with Rizzo, but also what was Rizzo doing? I don't understand.
Outs in that 5th inning.
Unbelievable. And I was worried when they got to 5-0. I was worried that it was too early, and all those opportunities that they had to pile on, and they didn't. And I said to my friends in our Slack group, I'm like, this is going to come back to bite them in the butt. I knew it. I could feel it. I was like, no, this is going to be one of these awful, awful losses. Like, it was how I felt when I was watching the 2004 World Series. Like, it was a slow motion car wreck, except this was one game. And I could just see the future happening. And I was like, oh, it's going to be so bad. It's going to be so bad. And I was right. And I don't like being right about stuff like that. And I really, really, they did what they needed to do against Jack Flaherty. That's what annoys the hell out of me. They got to the bullpen really early. They really shook him. And it really felt like, oh my gosh, they're going to at least get this to 6 and take it back to LA, because they were firing on all cylinders in those first 3 innings. And then that 5th inning happened. It was the 5th inning, right? Because this game felt like the longest game ever. That inning happens, and just like unbelievable to me how this happened but also not unbelievable to me in the same way.
It was heartbreaking. It really was, every bit of it. I felt it as soon as the judge dropped. I had this pit in my stomach of, oh no, this feels wrong.
Yep.
The Volpe play was, I mean, again, goes back on the manager, but not focused. You're up 5 runs.
Yeah.
And a bad error happened prior. You got to collect outs there. And going to third base was not necessary. It wasn't the right play. You didn't need to do that. First base would have been fine to get the out. You chose not to do that. Again, I think I think seeing a ground ball there, Cole had a lot of relief of, oh, I got out of the inning, not realizing, and then he had the brain fart of, I gotta finish this playoff. I don't know why Rizzo charged it and then stopped charging it and then picked it up and then just stopped running.
Just keep running. What are you doing?
I don't know why he did that.
That was a total brain fart. That was a brain fart
on both guys.
And it's odd to see 2 guys who have World Series experience and who've been playing in the league for a while screw up that badly on a play like that. Like, I just don't understand what was happening there.
The eighth inning was the hardest thing to watch. Because I felt like I was sitting in the electric chair, just being like, just push the button already. Like you knew you were gonna die. Just go, like end it already.
Yeah.
It wouldn't end. It was commercial break after replay review after. Oh, it was awful to watch. It really was. And again, nothing is going to change. Like if you're sitting there thinking, oh, they got to get rid of Boone, they're not doing that. They're gonna hide behind, oh, they made the World Series and the furthest they've gone. They're not changing a thing.
No.
The only positive that I take out of this, if there's a glimmer of any hope or positivity coming from this, I think this is losing the World Series is enough of a reason to send Hal over the edge to make sure he keeps Juan Soto. I think he keeps Juan Soto in town, especially because it does seem like from every possible report out there that the next highest bidder will be the New York Mets. There is no way after losing the World Series you're going to let him leave to go to the crosstown rival. There's just no way. As much as the Mets outbid, I think Hal's going to reach deeper and deeper and deeper to make sure he keeps Juan Soto. I think Juan Soto cares about being a Yankee. I think Juan Soto understands what it means to be a Yankee and the legacy behind it and what having a whole career with the Yankees could mean for his legacy. I think he gets that.
Yeah.
But besides all that, I think if there was a way that Hal could hide behind, oh, we won a World Series, whatever it was, to not pursue Juan Soto fully, I think losing the World Series ensures that he's going to pursue him with everything imaginable. The only way Juan Soto's not a Yankee next year is Juan Soto's decision.
Right.
Jets and Texans playing on Thursday Night Football.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, well, Big Sarge, when the schedule came out, I think a lot of people had this game schedule circled on the calendar as a potential matchup between 2 of the top teams in the conference. One of the teams has lived up to the hype, the other not so much. Let's start with the team that has lived up to the hype, the Houston Texans. What's going on in Houston this week?
One of the things that has been going on in Houston is after the Sunday's game against the Indianapolis Colts, where the Houston Texans won 23-22 and improved to 6-2 on the season and take a commanding lead in the AFC South. The offensive line and the second half scoring is still a problem for as many weapons as the Houston Texans have. And I know that they've been without Nico Collins for a couple of games. They've been without Joe Mixon for a couple of games. They missed Tank for a couple of games. Wide receiver Stephon Diggs got hurt in this game, and he, is unfortunately out for the season with the torn ACL. But the Houston Texans in games scored games with 1 score or less to win the game, or 5-1. And when you have such a potent offense who is supposed to come in and just blow everybody away with the amount of talent that they have on the offensive side of the ball, they haven't gotten it done. And they are scoring 9.5 points in the second half. And so they're getting what they need to get done in the first half. They're just not making the second half adjustments as far as offense is concerned. And that may be an offensive coordinator issue. Maybe Bobby isn't making the necessary adjustments and coming out and giving the same looks to the defense. CJ Stroud, when I asked him about it on Tuesday, he said it's something that we definitely have to work on. DeMeco Ryans has talked about it in the past. But one of the biggest issues outside of the offensive scoring in the second half, some of the injuries that we talked about, they sustained injuries on the defense side of the ball. It's just, John, it's the offensive line. I mean, the offensive line is the most glaring problem that the Houston Texans are having right now, being able to protect CJ. They're not giving up a ton of sacks each game, but their quarterback pressure and everything that's around him is starting to cause CJ Stroud, it's starting to cause him to have happy feet sometimes, something we're not used to seeing, especially after his record-breaking rookie season that he had. It's starting to cause him to have some choppy feet, some happy feet, seeing some ghosts. And that's something that the Houston Texans, they remember when they had David Carr here. I think he was sacked one season 76 times, and he just looked uncomfortable in the pocket. And you don't want CJ Stroud looking uncomfortable in the pocket, especially someone who has the talent to be a first ballot Hall of Famer if he continues on this trajectory. And I mean, I don't have to tell you, you get to talk about a first ballot Hall of Famer all the time as far as the quarterback position is concerned. But that offensive line has to be better. And it starts looking at Kenyon Green, left guard. He was out after his rookie season. He sat out his second year. He missed the entire year due to an injury. He's coming back this year. And so he's not just now playing in this Bobby. He's played 8 games in this Bobby Slowick-led offense, but he was pulled last week against the Colts for performance. And one of the things about him was he took accountability and said that it was his fault. But John, it isn't just Kenyon. They have an entire offensive line issue, and they have an interior line issue. So Kenyon hasn't looked good and hasn't looked good a lot of times. Center Juice Scruggs hasn't looked good a lot of times. And right guard Shaq Mason, who we expected to be better, a 10-year veteran, Super Bowl champion, they just can't seem to pick up the stunts and the delayed blitz that are coming at them like that, which also at times you can see Titus Howard, right tackle, and Laramie Tunsil, left tackle, struggle. And so that offensive line unit is the biggest issue and the most glaring issue that the Houston Texans have right now. And going up against a front four like the New York Jets have, you don't want to have that type of communication issue, that type of performance issue when you're going up against if I'm not mistaken, the 4th-ranked defense in the NFL.
Sarge, let me ask you, how are things looking on the defensive side of the ball for the Texans?
The defensive side of the ball, they have listen, and although they have sustained some injuries as far as at the linebacker position, it'll be another week. I think this is the 3rd game, if I'm not mistaken, without Azeez Al-Shaair, middle linebacker, who was a key free agent pickup for the Houston Texans in the offseason from the Tennessee Titans. Him and DeMeco have great chemistry together from their time in San Francisco. He's the quarterback of the defense. But the one thing about having a player coach like DeMeco, and I mean like a player, former NFL player / coach, and I mean players coach as well in DeMeco Ryans, is that at that position he can help build up. He can coach up, any player. And they're getting Henry To'oTo'o back as far he set out with a concussion. And so Kamari Lassiter, the rookie cornerback, he had set out with the shoulder injury. He came back on last week. And so they're starting to, when you look at the linebacker position, they picked up Devin White 2 weeks ago. He's getting a lot of playing time. Neville Hewitt has stepped up. Jake Hansen has stepped up at their linebacker position. And so they look better. And I said all that because we know about Derek Stingley. I'm very interested to see this matchup as far as how Derek Stingley is going to play on one side of the ball, and your all-pro cornerback on the other side in Sauce Gardner. I'm curious to see how they're going to take each other's game level up because of their competitiveness. And so rookie Kalen Bullock at safety has been good. Now, you notice I talked about the linebackers, I talked about the cornerbacks, I talked about the safety, the rookies, I had to save the best for last. That defensive line unit is amazing. I'm talking about amazing. I'm talking about a destructive force. I'm talking about will impose their will on anybody. And when and look, that's pun intended when I say impose their will, because NFL defensive, rookie defensive player of the year for 2023, Will Anderson Jr. is having a career year. He's currently tied at third with 7.5 sacks, which he only had sacks for last season, for all of 2023, for all his rookie year. And so it starts with Will, and on the other side of Will is Danielle Hunter, who is top 5 in quarterback pressures, had double digits in quarterback pressures last week against the Indianapolis Colts with 12, had 2 sacks. And so when you have Will Anderson Jr. coming at you from one side being destructive, when you have Danielle Hunter coming from the other side being destructive, that leaves a lot of room for that interior defensive line to eat. And now you got Tim Settle, you got Foley Fatukasi, you got Khalil Davis, you got Danico Autry back, who they also use as a defensive tackle and a defensive end sometimes. And I mean, they just have a unit, a defensive line unit that is, as Danielle Hunter told me last week after the game, he said, we're 4 people that move as one, and we're always going to move as one. And so that's why I say the defensive line unit for last, because they are by far right now the heartbeat of the entire Houston Texans team.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if they win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. And that winning $5 bet could come from an NFL game in Week 9 with their quarterback on deck to return. The New Orleans Saints are big favorites over the lowly Carolina Panthers. FanDuel has the Saints 7.5-point favorites in Charlotte this Sunday. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Could it be the 2 best teams in the NFC?
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I mentioned the Lions 3.5-point. Can you think of a time 3.5-point favorites in Lambeau, and both teams were good? I can't. I don't know that that's happened in our lives.
No, I can't either. And again, I know it's been the last 2 years, and certainly that was that Week 18 stunner and ending Aaron Rodgers' career. But Lions went into that game an underdog as well.
I think every year I have found a reason since it happened. So 2021, not that long ago, but still, probably every month or two, I will bring up what Dan Campbell did in that week. Was it Week 18? Were there 18 weeks in 2021?
Yes,
where he's throwing fake field goals and reverse passes, and they did everything in a game that did not matter to them, but was a cultural marker for them to say, this is what we're going to do. I've said on this show, I've said on radio interviews, I've written at The Leap, a newsletter I would love for everyone to subscribe to, that especially if it's Malik Willis, that's the game I want to see Matt LaFleur call. That is the game where you say, we're going to empty the chamber, everything in our back pocket, we're going to be digging out old Nike bags, trying to find plays. Let's see what we can do, because I love that opportunity. This is going to be a banged up Packers team no matter what. Even if everyone plays, I think they're going to be hard pressed to win this game. I want to see the creativity from Matt LaFleur on full display. And it is such a credit. I have to take the biggest L on Dan Campbell, because I was wrong. Like, I was flat out wrong about Dan Campbell. And now I want the Packers to imitate that plan, even though they're a 6-2 team. They're a good team, but they're just really banged up right now.
I agree with you. I do think these are the best 2 teams in the NFC, and you want to see both teams at full strength. I'm excited for the Thursday game in December when the Lions and when the Packers come to Ford Field. I mean, there's a lot of storylines here, and you look at the NFC and how wide open it is after what happened with the Commanders last week and everything else. Yeah, these are probably the 2 best teams in the NFC. Very well coached, very well drilled. Both defenses are better. I think what would be a key for the Lions, I mentioned before, Sam Laporta, middle of the field. Not having Jamison Williams out there didn't matter last week against the AAA Titans. I think they are. Let's be honest. That poor guy, Callahan, has where are we going with?
He's got no clue.
He's not ready to be a head coach. But this week, without Jamison Williams, I think the Packers maybe, like you said, load the box a little bit because they know that threat of number 9 running down the field is not there. But I do think that Laporta sneaking by and maybe Ben Johnson gets him in a one-on-one with a linebacker or two could be the difference in this game. He has not had a breakout Sam Laporta 100-yard game yet.
Yeah.
He's had some good games, but he was kind of held in check the first few weeks, similar to how Kelsey was in Kansas City. This could be that game you find Laporta. And another one, too, is first outdoor game for the Lions this year. And the only one they're going to have until December when they have to go to Chicago and San Francisco back-to-back. How will Jake Bates handle it? The young rookie kicker from the UFL has been really good. You know, Dan Campbell likes to go for it anyway, but if he sends Bates out there, he's been great. And it's tough to kick in Minnesota, and he did. But again, first outdoor game, you wonder how that will go. And if there's a miss or two in there, if that could prove to be a costly for the Lions. How about on your side?
Yeah, well, two things on that. The Packers are 26th in DVOA defending tight ends this year. They've had some problems with it. Part of that is because they've been playing a lot of cover 2 lately behind blitz looks. So they'll send those pressures and then they'll drop into cover 2. Well, the part of you want to attack in cover 2 is that seam. So you get tight ends down the middle. Trevor Lawrence had a couple gorgeous plays throwing to the tight end in those kinds of situations. The other part of this, Matt, is it's going to be in the 50s. It's going to be rainy as of the forecast right now, which can affect the kicking game. What was the first thing Dan Campbell said when asked about going to play at Lambeau? Have the right shoes. This is perpetually a problem for opponents. Viking fans they're still crying about 2022 when they were frauds and they went into Lambeau and got their doors blown off because they kept slipping. And they're like, well, we were slipping, like, Okay,
Right.
cool. Have the right cleats. But this is, I think, part of the Packers' path to victory is Jahmyr Gibbs puts the ball on the ground. You get Jared Goff and his tiny hands. Ball slips out of his hands in his his throwing motion, something like that. Like, create a little bit of variance in here. Create a little bit of fun. These are both two teams that are good at creating takeaways. I think the Packers have to create some takeaways for this team because they're just too potent offensively to think you're going to get them to punt 8 times. You're just probably not going to do that. So you've got to create some takeaways. For me, that's the key. And third downs. The third down stats, some of these stats, Matt, are crazy. The Packers passer rating on third downs, opponent passer rating, is 20 points better than the next best defense right now in the NFL. They're third in completion percentage. They would have the best third down defense in Green Bay by conversion rate since 2006. So that's another key here, to not extend drives, the turnovers and the third downs. That's something the Packers are really, really good at this year defensively. If they can exert their will there, they can win. You go first. You go first with a prediction.
I really, to be quite honest, normally I'm ready to rock on this one. I agree with you on high scoring. I think the Lions, obviously the offense has been great. Without Aiden Hutchinson, we haven't really touched on it much. It's Josh Pascal and who knows whom. I think Brad Holmes will make a move before Tuesday to bring an edge rusher in here, whether it's
do you have a name?
Maybe it's Zadarius Smith, who hates the Packers and hates the Vikings. So, hey, he's going to get to play them twice a year.
Yeah.
That's possible.
I don't know about the culture fit there with Dan Campbell personally.
I don't either. Arden Key could be a guy. What if the Saints and Cam Jordan agree? Yeah, I know I said I was going to retire in New Orleans, but y'all suck. And I'm going to go up with my friends, Dan and Alex and Aaron.
Yeah.
And Glenn, Alex Anzalone, all the guys in New Orleans he knows. That would be a great fit. Calais Campbell could be a minor move.
Chase Young, even in New Orleans too.
Yeah. So, although I don't know if Chase Young, after his jogging routine against Jahmyr Gibbs last year in the NFC Championship game, fits the Brad Holmes model, but there's going to be somebody that's coming. It's just a matter of the fit. Brad Holmes is very particular on what he wants to do, but that could be an issue. Is too much time for the quarterbacks. And watch Taylor Decker too. Lions left tackle has not played well the last few weeks, and these are good edge rushers that you guys have, and keep an eye on that one too. You mentioned maybe Golf puts it on the turf. I think it would be if Decker first play of the game last week, Decker let Arden Key go right around him. And it was like, wait, what's going on here? So hopefully Taylor plays better. But I'll take the Lions and I'll say a 34-27 final.
All right. I like that. I think Jordan Love is going to play. It's hard to know for sure about the other guys. I think Jai Alexander is going to play as well. I think the Packers can ham and egg it here together. I think 30-27. Packers cover 3.5, but lose the game. I certainly could see the Packers scoring enough points in this game to win. I would love to see a one-off game plan from Matt LaFleur, is what I'll say all week. Have a couple special things ready for this team, but that's just not really been the Packers' MO under Matt LaFleur. So we'll see if that's how it goes.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if they win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. And that winning $5 bet could come from an NFL game in Week 9 with their quarterback on deck to return. The New Orleans Saints are big favorites over the lowly Carolina Panthers. FanDuel has the Saints 7.5-point favorites in Charlotte this Sunday. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast.
So you and I, Andy, were both really hoping that the Lakers would not try to engineer another Bronny Braun moment, despite the game being in Cleveland, which, yes, folks, we know he grew up in Akron. We know, close enough. Okay. And so this is, it's a homecoming game for LeBron. It's, where Bronny grew up and all that kind of stuff. And it's a big deal and whatever. And I get the impulse to try to put them on the floor together. But you and I were both hoping that they wouldn't. By all accounts and by all reports, they were going to, if the game allowed it. I would say if there's one silver lining to them falling behind by 18, it was that they couldn't engineer this moment in any way that wasn't totally ridiculous and credibility destroying. And so it didn't happen.
And you know what? Bronny ended up playing at the end of this game, where you would normally play a deep reserve.
Last guy off the bench, as it should have been.
He's playing in a blowout. He would normally enter a game in a blowout in either direction at this point. And here's what I actually really liked about it. First of all, Bronny did a good enough job. Like, he had a really nice jumper that he connected on. He had a
mid-range baseline thing for his first NBA points.
Yeah, it was a really nice sequence. He had a couple assists. He had a steal. And the moment got to be his.
Mm-hmm.
It actually got to be his moment, which the crowd was really excited about. They were chanting for Bronny. Like, it reflects something you and I have both said a lot, that however controversial and polarizing Bronny on this roster is for a lot of Laker fans, a lot of media, whatever, it's not about Bronny. Nobody seems to dislike Bronny. People seem to be genuinely rooting for Bronny. You and I have said many times, he strikes us as a really grounded, hardworking young man who wants to be taken seriously and wants to be respected on his own merits. Like, he understands, I'm LeBron James's son. I know what these moments mean for my dad. I understand the history of it all. And I'm sure the moment on the court meant something to him. But I think it's also pretty clear he wants to be taken seriously because he earned the right to be taken seriously. And I feel like this played out perfectly because, again, he went out there, he played fine. He had moments where he looked good, and it got to be all his. And it didn't feel manufactured, and it didn't feel like it was about something else. Like, how do LeBron and Bronny engineer the moment together? Like, I thought this was great.
And it doesn't hurt the credibility of, it's like, if you put it, you're down by 15, down by 16. If you put them on the floor, then you are clearly prioritizing things that aren't winning over winning.
You mean in the second quarter, to be clear.
You put them in, you're down 15, 16 points in the second quarter, which is when this probably would have happened if they were up 15. In which case I would have felt still like, I don't like this. I don't think you should do it. but it's still better, I guess, than trying to do it when you're playing catch up.
Well, you clearly can't do it then.
Right. I mean, if I'm Bronny, I'm like, I'm taking off my shoes. Like I'm not going to the game. Like, so I think it was off the table. And I don't think there was any real temptation to try to be like, well, can we do it for a minute? Like the answer is no. If the circumstances were perfect, I understand the impulse of, wouldn't it be cool for Bronny and Braun to play together in Cleveland? It is not one of these places. It's not like baseball where you visit Colorado 16 times over the course of a season. You got one game in Cleveland. And okay, I mean, I understand the impulse, but I think ultimately the Lakers dodged a bullet here, because if they are trying to be taken seriously, and they are, this doesn't help. Like once you get past the moment of history, which happened, at that point you have to project that you are all about winning. And it's not just what people like you and I say. It's also what people think inside the locker room. And while I think in that locker room, everybody respects LeBron so much and enough that, like, okay, they get it. Everybody recognizes the significance of it from a kind of a family and emotional standpoint. But I could also see guys being like, come on, like, we're trying to win a game here.
Right.
And you're putting
Exactly.
a kid out there, like, and if it just chips away a tiny bit at the credibility that Redick has built up with this group this early in the season, it is so not worth it. And so in that sense, they dodged a bullet and are probably better off than they otherwise would have been.
Yeah, and again, I thought it was cool
None of this has to do with Bronny, by the way.
No,
100%
I thought it
agree.
was really cool that Bronny just entered a game. People were excited to see him play. He did a good job on the court, and the cheers were earned. Like, they were truly earned. Like, the people that were excited to see him got to see Bronny just perform a normal basketball game. For real, I think that's great.
It will be there aren't going to be many other. I can't think of other play. I mean, Miami, like when they go there, like, is there going to be a temptation to put them, like, so in theory, this is kind of it, right? And the G League season opens next week, and the Lakers are going to send him there. I was just flipping through sports radio, and they were going through all these sort of what if scenarios around Bronny and Braun. And, you know, what if LeBron demands that he stay on with the team all season? Okay, well, he's not going to. Like, you know, like these are not things that are going to happen. He's going to go down to the G League and play. And
okay, you know what?
Going to get back to normal.
Let me just say right now, if LeBron actually did that, and I want to emphasize this strenuously, he won't. But if he did, I think they'd actually tell him no. They would actually say, we cannot do
Can't do that. It's bad for Bronny. It's bad for his
It's bad for
development.
Bronny, and it's bad for the team. And eventually this is going to start to become a thing that nobody's going to want to deal with. Again, cannot emphasize this enough. LeBron's not going to do that. But if he did, I think the answer would actually be no.
So again, I am looking very much towards these next two games as a real litmus test for who they are. And, you know, if they come out and play with the same level of intensity, meaning not nearly enough, whether it's against Toronto or Detroit, it's going to say something. You know, you come out and play really, really hard. I mean, Toronto catches fire, maybe Detroit catches fire. Like, sometimes weird things happen. And those games probably aren't going to be blowouts the way that fans would want them to be. But especially if AD is hurt, especially if Austin Reeves is banged up or whatever, kind of what do you look like as a team? How much give a bleep can you project for these games, and make sure you come home to play a limping Philadelphia team when this road trip is over? Make sure you come home with a winning record.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if they win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. And that winning $5 bet could come from an NFL game in Week 9 with their quarterback on deck to return. The New Orleans Saints are big favorites over the lowly Carolina Panthers. FanDuel has the Saints 7.5-point favorites in Charlotte this Sunday. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Should Penn State start Drew Aller or Bo Pribula at quarterback against Ohio State?
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Dylan, we are debating if Penn State should start Drew Aller at less than 100% or a 100% Bo Pribula. Who gives the best chance against Ohio State? And then what happens regardless of the outcome, let's look at if Penn State wins versus a loss to Ohio State, what happens? But let's start with that debate, Aller or Pribula. I'm going to go middle of the road here, Dylan. I think they should actually play both 50-50. And it helps when you have a coordinator like Andy Kotelnicki, who has run 2 quarterback systems successfully. Given the injury circumstances and Drew Aller not being he's not 100%. We know that for a fact. But it's also Ohio State week. This element of surprise, the way that they would have to game plan for 2 different playbooks is going to be challenging for Jim Knowles and the Buckeyes.
Yeah, no, I think the uncertainty of who's going to be a quarterback on Saturday is actually a plus for Penn State heading into this game, because Ohio State now has to prepare not just for 1 quarterback but 2 quarterbacks. And I know Bo Pribula isn't the quarterback that Drew Aller is. He doesn't have the ceiling, he doesn't have the arm, but he is a quarterback that can help move this offense down the field. We saw that against a good Wisconsin defense this weekend. What he was able to do while on the field. That was our first extended look at him really as Penn State, as a quarterback at Penn State throughout his career. And it was impressive overall, in my opinion. When it comes to Saturday against Ohio State, I think if Drew is able to move around enough in the pocket that he's going to be able to escape some pressures and not be a statue back there, then I think he needs to get the majority of the reps. I think 80% Drew gives Penn State a better chance than 100% Bo. And I think that's just because the arm that Drew, has and the arm talent that he has. And that's nothing against Bo. I think Penn State can win this game with Bo Pribula at quarterback. I really, really do.
As the full-time guy, correct?
As the full-time guy.
Okay.
But it would not be it would be a much more difficult game to win with Bo, I think, at quarterback than Drew. And that just, again, comes down to the level of quarterback. Drew is a potential first-round pick, a potential future NFL starter. Bo is a college quarterback, and he may...
Has an uphill battle to the NFL.
Yeah, he may end up being a really good college quarterback, but he's not going to be an NFL starting quarterback. He's not Drew. So I think 80% Drew is better than 100% Bo, but I do think with Bo in the offense and what Andy Kotelnicki's style has been over the course of his career, I think there is an avenue for success on Saturday with Bo. But if Drew is good enough to move around, then I think he has to play the majority of the game. I'm sure Bo will get his fair share of snaps as well. But I think if Drew is anywhere close to being able, if he's in a spot he can be mobile enough, then he has to be the one on Saturday.
The mobility is key, because if Drew cannot extend plays, if Drew cannot slide in the pocket, that's going to be a serious issue, let alone the fact that he can pick up 5 to 10 yards if you don't have a quarterback spy on him. So Drew Aller does a lot of things even though he's not a true dual threat mobile quarterback, he can move. And I don't think defenses still respect that enough. However, if this knee injury is more serious than we're led to believe, then I absolutely am comfortable with Bo Prabula leading the offense on that given day. I think one way or another, Ohio State just has its work cut out for them. You have to prepare for either starting quarterback because James Franklin is not going to say, oh yeah, he's fine. He's going to be the quarterback. Ohio State can take the risk and say, all right, we're going to prepare like Drew Aller's the starter. That injury didn't look so bad against Wisconsin. But what if, on the off chance he isn't, and Bo Prabula is playing 100% of the game, and then you just went the entire week preparing like it was Drew Aller, and you're getting a completely different quarterback and a completely different playbook that Andy Kotelnicki is comfortable calling to Bo Prabula's strengths.
Yeah, and it would be much more similar, I think, to the Kansas offense that we saw last year.
Absolutely.
With Jalen Daniels. And I will say, we are recording this a little bit ahead before it comes out on Thursday, but and no inside info here, just my gut. I would probably, if you put, maybe pick right now if Drew or Bo is going to start on Saturday, I'd honestly probably lean that it's going to be more likely Bo, just because it's we don't know the exact nature of that injury that Drew had. It could be a lot more minor than it seemed, but you got to be careful with knee injuries.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about this, but this game for Penn State, while it's a big game, kind of means a whole lot less now that they beat Wisconsin last week in the grand scheme of things.
Yes.
It's not it was never going to be an elimination game, but the room for error now for Penn State down the stretch here is much bigger. And, would Penn State rather risk, putting a hobbled Drew out there against Ohio State when Bo still gives you a chance to win? And if you put a Drew out there in a hobbled state, you're potentially risking further injury. And, Drew has, decisions to make of his own in terms of his future, and a significant knee injury could absolutely derail his future as well. So there's a lot at stake here. And I'm glad I'm not at the Penn State coaching staff, because this is a hard decision to make on Saturday of who's going to be the quarterback. And I know James said it's going to go down to a game time decision, and I do believe that as well. But
yes.
But ultimately, again, no inside info, just based off my opinion, I think we likely see Bo on Saturday as the starting quarterback. But yeah, if Drew can go, he's gonna have to be able to move. But also, we saw that knee injury and how it affected his passing immediately afterwards. Now, obviously, that was right afterwards, but he definitely was off the mark on that one downfield pass attempt with that bad knee. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, because you got to factor that into it too. If he can't really use that leg as needed to get the ball downfield, that's another factor you have to add into this beyond just being able to move. Bo Prabula will be able to move the ball at times on Saturday, but I already think it's going to be a low scoring game for the most part. So it'll be interesting to see just what happens there, that quarterback position. But I think that's a couple of things to also keep in mind here with that.
No, that's important for Drew's ability to push the football down the field. You're compromising not just his mobility, but potentially those deep throws, because I don't know that Bo Prabula is going to open up the aerial attack. I think his legs open up avenues to get some quick passes, some easier passes, but to sit back in the pocket and just say, hey, we're going to be able to target somebody deep like a Tyler Warren or an Amari Evans, which we've seen consistently from Drew, one way or another. That's why I think you can get the best of both worlds in this game if you run the two quarterback system against Ohio State. If Drew Aller's not 100%, but you play him strategically and efficiently and allow Bo Prabula's abilities to be involved in this game, that's why I think that might be Penn State's best game plan. And Andy Kotelnicki is just going to have to call a heck of a game. Same thing with Tom Allen, because I don't exactly like that matchup against Ohio State's wide receivers and Penn State's defensive backs.